Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer. Welcome back to F1 Manager, episode 97. Oof, getting close to that century mark. Well, anyway, Jack Doohan, I knew for a while that we're drawing really close to where Porsche overtakes Doohan, but not yet. Doohan hits 82 overall first, and they both had points. With that point that we just added, Doohan now has a 90 in control. His braking is still at an 82. That is the area where Porsche is a bit ahead of him. He's at an 86, so he's +4 in that department, having also already hit the 90 here. The difference in the points between them is somewhere down here in the racecraft area, but Porsche trying to get both of those up to a 90, as that will seemingly stop the lockups from being a constant thing, and the lockups are the ones that have caused the bigger issues. Running wide can and will cause issues from time to time. A spin will cause an issue from time to time, but it's the lockups that seem to have the race ending issues. The lockups get you into the back end of somebody else's gearbox and wipes you both out, and those have been the massive race altering ones. So anyway, Porsche almost is better than Doohan now, but for the time being he's still an 81. We'll see how soon till he hits that 82 as well, because last time we checked he was still a handful of points behind, but Porsche is definitely leveling up faster than Doohan, especially when you add in the fact that it's not just the modifier that Porsche has higher than Doohan. Of course, every season each one gets lower as they do get closer to their maximum, but Porsche clearly has higher potential. In addition to that, it's the mistakes. When you make the mistakes, you get less XP for the race because it backs you off. It puts you, further down the grid than you should be or would otherwise be, and so you earn less XP. Doohan's making a lot more mistakes, so he, in general, not just because of the modifier, but because of the mistakes, gets less XP. And Porsche has been closing that gap, and I think he's going to hit 82 somewhere in the next couple of points for him. He's very, very close, so they're almost even now as drivers. Last season, Monaco wasn't our first result of the year, but it was the first time we had both cars on the podium, with a first and third Porsche claiming the victory by less than a second over Sergio Perez, and Jack Doohan coming so close to overtaking Perez at the end, and we were well ahead of anyone else in third place. Now, of course, that's one Red Bull who was completely missing from the front of the field, and therefore all the way down in 13th made life a little bit easier. Let's see what we can do if we can replicate that sort of result and get both cars on the podium again. We've got 2 races on the trot that have gone really well. Can we make it a trifecta?
Cars have been racing through Monaco's streets since 1929, and this weekend is no exception, as we get to watch the new generation of world-class drivers take over Monte Carlo. This is the Monaco Grand Prix.
For the second time this season, we've been caught out in Q2 by simulating Porsche coming 11th. The grid is just so close to each other. He could very well be competing for pole or, say, third place, and yet here we are out in Q2 once again. And polar opposites, as Porsche was P6 in Q1, and then Doohan had actually been P11. He's out though. He's out. I mean, you can see he's slower in Q2 than he was in Q1, where Doohan improves on his time. So the inconsistency of the AI strikes. I would love to take penalties and drop Porsche down, but this just does not seem like the track that you want to do that on. It's hard to make your way through the grid, or maybe you just take the penalties and suck it up and lose points big time on the day. No, I think there's still valuable points that Porsche can get into from P11. I think he's going to have to be a little bit further down the grid, or on a track that's a little bit easier to overtake to accept a start from P20. Doohan alone left here in Q3. After the first run, he's on the second row. He sits third behind the 2 McLarens, which is an unusual position for those to be in. We are the last one out on track behind one of the Ferraris. I'm not sure which one, whether it's Perez or Leclerc that's ahead of us, but we are on our way. And in Sector 1, I want to see what that time is like. It's green, it's not purple. I'm nervous about how close we actually are. We might be getting some dirty air behind the Ferrari here. Could be making it a bit harder to put together a really, really solid lap time. But Bottas sits on pole so far. Russell, only P5. Ocon, only P8. Green in each of the two sectors, which means we are at least improving our time, which our time was already good enough for third, now fourth, as Verstappen goes on the provisional pole with only a couple drivers left to go. It's us and Leclerc. Leclerc, we've definitely closed in on him, and we go P2. Not a pole, but very good start position. Just a 10th down on Verstappen, moving ahead of the two McLarens who dropped to the second row of the grid. We do have some relative pace. I think Pourchaire can make his way forward. It is easier to pass on the game than it is in real life here, but not much easier.
The drivers have now taken position on the grid, and it's looking like a cloudy day. Looking at the Williams now. A second place start for them today. They're in with a real chance. And looking at the second Williams car, they're in the back half of the pack, so they'll need to work hard if they want a podium finish. Everything's been building to this. It's time for one of the most exciting races in the world. This is the Monaco Grand Prix. And it's lights out, and away we go.
And we are racing. I've got split strategy here with Doohan going medium hard one stopper, and then I have Pourchaire going with an opposite of the hard to medium one stopper, as we're going to try to bide our time in the back of the grid here. So let's check in with Doohan first, as we are already locked in on P2, and that is totally fine with me, as it's going to make life easy. You can really sit behind and just do your thing. You can conserve the tires longer. And try to overcut, and you can try to conserve that fuel a bit. And meanwhile, Pourchaire, as I was hoping, has been able to get a good enough start to get ahead of at least one car, and that is Ocon, now behind the two Ferraris. And now we're really going to bide our time. I was hoping with him that we wouldn't go backwards, so being able to go forward by a spot is definitely a good start. Naturally, we should have some pace advantage over some other cars, and there's a lot of cars on the soft compound. In fact, we are the first and only one on the hards until all the way back to 18th, Mick Schumacher. So Pourchaire is going to have a real pace advantage late in the race, but that means overtakes are going to be a very different matter while everybody else is trying to hang on to things. But being in the procession now, as long as we're able to keep pace and not fall back, can put us in a strong position later on. But we're going to be settling in here. We've got some soft compounds around the front end of the grid. Sainz, Leclerc, the only ones on the mediums that are ahead of Pourchaire. Pourchaire could easily hold up the other guys. Doohan does not have DRS on Verstappen as of right now. Sainz does not have DRS. We're seeing some bigger gaps in the field. Let's just hope that Verstappen doesn't pull too far away. He's going to be pitting much earlier than we are. As long as he's only a few seconds ahead, it won't be to our detriment, and we actually should be able to close back up on him later. But so far here on lap 3 only, he's certainly gaining some tenths with that extra pace that he has being on those softs. Unlike a lot of other tracks that we've been to, here there are some clear pace differences, and transforming it will spread this field out over time. 10-12 car processions around Monaco, with one car a little bit off the pace stretching and everybody else stuck behind them. Here we're seeing things stretch. I was hoping if we were only a few seconds back we'd be good with Doohan, but on lap 9 he's already 5.5 seconds behind Verstappen. We have our strategy, they have theirs. We'll have to reap what we sow. Yeah, he's at 62% now, so he's going to fall below that 60% threshold and lose some pace here quite soon. Bottas already has. Bottas is right behind us, though. We'll see if this gap to Bottas is growing. We've pulled it out to 0.6. It's hard to make overtakes here. Let's see this one. Down the straight with DRS, it looks like. And into turn 1. And then on up the hill to finally complete it.
A position in the pack.
That was quite the overtake.
That was a
Sandoval
big
is not an
moment.
easy place to
The team are
overtake.
clearly-
Leclerc has caught back up. We've got Pourchaire now. And Perez has fallen off. He's 4 seconds back and holding up a train back there. So if we slow things down just a little bit to kind of get the visual perspective of where everybody's at. You got Verstappen crossing the start-finish line, beginning lap 23, then doing at, clear air. The two McLarens and Norris slipping back to about a second behind, so he could be finding himself out of DRS range here quite soon as well. And then you got a train of 4 with Pourchaire at the tail end of that. His advantage on the hard compound is starting to look pretty solid. And there you go. All I had to do was turn overtake on, and we get up to P8. Back to neutral. We'll see if we have the kind of pace to get up there. This looks like a very, very similar overtake on what we had as we get up the inside of the Mercedes. And yeah, it is. It's an identical overtake to what we had there. We're able to get up the inside for Sandoval and then just out-accelerate up the hill. That hard compound is working well for us at the moment. We're still at 66%. They're down to 31. No wonder these guys are off the pace right now. Speaking of off the pace, how are we looking? Yes, we are closing back down on Verstappen, which is something I suspected would happen. However, it's not in a good manner. I mean, we pulled back 1 second is all, 1.5 seconds. We take the lead as Verstappen pits, so Doohan is now in the race lead. Sainz is still out there, and Bottas pits. A lot of cars have pit, so Pourchaire jumps to P5. He's got some clean air to run in right now, but wow, Verstappen is P3, and having already pit. Oh man, that's it's gonna be difficult for Doohan if he's got that sort of gap. It is running that quick now. He's 1.6 seconds faster a lap right now. That's I think Verstappen's your favorite to take the victory today. 12 seconds behind his teammate, though. That's that worrying portion of his race is very much offset from that P11 start. But he's on that hard compound. He will be faster later, and as this field stretches more and more, he could and should find himself in some clean air. Alright, here's the plan. Supposedly, pit lane time loss is 22 seconds. How accurate that is in game, I have no idea. In past experiences, I've kind of found that to be relatively inaccurate, but supposedly we have about 5 seconds to spare on our gap over Bottas. His last lap was 8/10 slower than ours, but his last lap was behind Ocon, who was on the mediums just like we were, but now diving off into the pits. So we're going to have to keep a close eye on Bottas. We have about 5 seconds to spare. We're going to go aggressive instead of pitting and extend by at least 1 lap, because supposedly we're going to have clean air coming out behind our teammate. Do it into the pits. It's too late to try to turn things up. Will we come out ahead of Sainz or behind him? I might have left it 1 lap too late. 2.6 on the stop. Pourchaire has already gone through, and we are back out on track ahead of the McLaren. Okay. Not by far, but we are ahead of the McLaren, so that's good. Safety car, safety car. Oh gosh, it's Pourchaire. It's Pourchaire. Pourchaire has spun. Safety car is coming out. He's got flats, and it's at Sandoval, so he's on turn 1. Major chassis damage. He might be out of the race. He is out. Pourchaire from P2 out of the race. Oh, never mind that. Sandoval looks like he just lost it. Entering Sandovat. Yep. Just
That
fun.
crash is terrible news for the team.
Alright, well, now it's Stuen's race only. The
team
field has not fully bunched up, and we are almost going to be going racing again. We have closed up on Verstappen and a handful of cars behind us. You can see there's a lot of cars just now coming through the swimming pool section.
No overtaking until
We're already in Rascasse, so we're about to go racing here. Good news for me is we have very much caught up to Verstappen, who had an over 20-second advantage, and we've got 96% where he's at 87, so that's going to give us some extra pace. We might actually be able to keep up with him now. We also have some spare fuel that we've now been able to save up that we're going to be able to use here in the coming laps. For now, my goal, my hope is that we can keep pace with him. If we can keep him within DRS range, I think we've got a shot at winning this race still. Sainz also has 93% though. He's in a similar state to we are. Leclerc at 92, but so much of the field is already down into the mid 80s, and that's going to give us a definite advantage. Those who had a similar strategy to us are mostly at the back end of the field. DRS enabled, and we have held it at 4/10. Meanwhile, Sainz and Bottas are both nearly out of DRS range, so it could easily be a top two driving away from everybody else. But Russell's out of DRS, down in 7th, so we are now down to a train of the top 6. I'm definitely having the easiest time keeping up with the car ahead of them, and we actually just about passed Verstappen there on our own. Norris at 2.5 seconds, so not just kind of sort of falling out of range, he's definitely out of DRS range, so it really is that top 4. And Bottas has now lost DRS as well, or at least just about. Looks like he's eased his way back in. That is Latifi getting out of the way of Verstappen, but then getting in my way through the next sequence of corners. I would suppose he'd get out of the way now on the straight. Yes, he does, but that puts us more than a second behind. We get back within. We had DRS, and yeah, 8/10. I think we will be okay. But Bottas misses out. Bottas really checked up. He's now 3.3 behind, so we've dropped Bottas. Sainz got through. So as for the championship at this point here on lap 59, and let's start speeding things back up a bit. But as for the championship, we're now looking at, well, you have Pourchaire's out, so we're going to struggle to score a lot of points. If we get the win, though, if we get the fastest lap, we're getting 26. It's still a pretty okay day, but it's not going to be a great day because we're down to the one car. But Perez and Leclerc in the Ferraris, that's not very many points. It's not very many points at all, so we will easily outscore them. And Russell's not having a very good day down in P7, and he's well behind those ahead of him, so that's not looking like a big scoring day for them either. But when you add that Verstappen right now sits P1, as long as we can successfully overtake and take the win away from Verstappen, that's going to cut down their points. Russell will, for the most part, make up the difference. So we should be about level with Red Bull on the day. We nearly get the overtake done ourselves there on lap 65. Rascasse down the main straight with DRS. Going around the outside though. And the overtake's complete. We did it that fast, that easy. And we've pulled it out to 5/10, not quite as much as we did on the last lap, with the overtake being, part of that pulling away, but we've pulled it back out to 6/10. And we're on to the last lap. It's last lap, so we can really just kind of deploy and get away from this guy. 3/10 ahead. Don't want to turn this up and have somebody who's prone to something make a mistake here on the final lap. Sainz, meanwhile, still in range, but he's a little bit too far back of Verstappen to to do anything. And actually, we have a fastest lap on the line. I'm not sure we can really contend with that, but let's go aggressive.
Can push through all corners.
Out to 7/10. We got this. And here comes that 18th place Sonoda in sight now. But not close enough to interfere with our race. Swimming pool, one final time. Now Rascass, we're over a second ahead of Verstappen. We've got him out of DRS range. Is this lap fast enough to take the fastest lap of the race, get that bonus point? We're looking at 25 right now. It's definitely a quick lap. But there's a race victory. No purple, though. Tires were too used by this point, even though we were light on fuel. But Verstappen does hang on for second. Sainz gets third. Bottas looks like he's got fourth, all but wrapped up. There it is. Norris, Leclerc, Russell, Gasly, Perez, Albon. It's Russell who sat P2 in the championship and didn't have a great day either, so he gains 6 points, and Porsche actually keeps the Drivers' Championship lead for the time being, sitting on 99 still. Doohan with 25 today now jumps to 90, so you got 3 drivers in the 90-plus range. No one over 100. Verstappen certainly makes some progress himself and moves up to P4, with Leclerc dropping to P5. And that's 5 drivers that are really kind of pulling away with Perez, the one in those top 3 teams that's just not quite doing as much. And McLaren looks okay. Today they looked good, but they're quite a ways behind now from after that first race. They looked really good, but they hadn't looked good since until today. In the Constructors, we sit on 189 with identical points to Red Bull on the day, so no change. We stay 14 ahead. Ferrari at 105 is already starting to become out of the picture, just as McLaren has recently managed to do so, though they did pick up 3 points on us today, but they're very inconsistent on the pace. And so I don't think McLaren's going to be a long-term threat, and Ferrari really starting to fall off that pace. I think it's really down to us and a Red Bull. Plenty of races still to come, though. A lot can change, especially when I'm heavily focused on next year's car. We did get our chassis upgrade done, but it's not on the car yet. It's in manufacturing as of right now. So we're not going to be doing much more to upgrade the car the rest of the season, and that could be a factor and allow teams to come back at us later on. So we should be trying to pull a gap. Car Part Test Center, just 4 days until it's done. We've got 11 days till we head to Baku, so it will be done quite soon. So that's awesome. Suspension simulator, 12 days, so it'll be done during the race weekend. And those are the final upgrades for each of those. And the only other upgrade we have left outside of our scouting network, and we will do that to have it done eventually, because it's not a big deal at all, but completion. We want to be reaching completion. But the factory is the big one that remains. And for the factory, 28 million. We have 30. We're also just a few days away from the turn of the month, which means we're going to have additional money. Therefore, yeah, it's time. It's time. The final upgrade in the primary car development area, which are by far the most expensive ones. In fact, just for looking at it, that's it. Not even 3 million for the upgrade for the scouting department for the next one. So that's going to be happening quite soon. New chassis, new month, new rankings, and you can see we're still in good shape. We're starting to lose just a little bit in that top speed. We were, I think, third and like third first, or third second, or first second. So speed wise, we're getting overtaken, but everybody's like really, really close to each other. But we are still best in aero, and we did improve our brake cooling quite a bit, where our engine cooling is right about where it was, so that new chassis has helped in that department. But otherwise, we're on 4-3-2-3-2-3 in terms of upgrades for the season, and nothing new coming for a little bit. I don't know quite when our next period is coming. I'm going to go ahead and start doing research on the chassis as well, so it's another part that's going to be done for the year in terms of upgrades, leaving me really just the side pods and the suspension left to do another upgrade on, and otherwise front wing, rear wing, underfloor, and chassis are all now focused on next year. Season Baku was a rough one. We had just 5th place, and Doohan crashed out of the race 23 laps before the end, was the only DNF, just as yesterday Pourchaire was the only DNF. So we'll see what happens with this next race. Pourchaire, though, was quite close to 2nd place. Perez just over a second behind him, but just could not get around the drivers he was in and amongst.
Hello from Baku, where we're looking forward to a weekend of racing among the medieval and the modern, here at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix.
Q3, flying lap. Both Doohan and Pourchaire do make it to Q3, but we don't seem to have very good pace here. We barely made it to Q3, both being 9th and 10th. And then, so far in Q3, in our first run in the banker lap, of course, we have the used one, everybody else is fresh, but we were 6/10ths down, only in P8, P10. And Doohan doesn't even go green in the first sector, so Doohan not off to a great start on his flyer lap. It's Pourchaire we ride with. He was green in Sector 1. Verstappen and Russell very much at the front of the grid, which means we could have a challenge on our hands here at Baku in this race weekend. But we should be coming up on the end of that Sector 2 here pretty soon. And we are green for Pourchaire. Meanwhile, Doohan is green there. So can they both improve on their time? Can we move up a bit? We really only need about a 10th to get up a few positions. A couple tenths will get us up quite a bit. So it wouldn't take much to even see P2 right now. Can we get that much improvement on the fresh tires? Everybody else is locked in. No change to our positions. Pourchaire goes P5 and Doohan P7. Okay, well, we do get a bit. P5, P7 is certainly better than P8 and P10, but we don't quite have the pace here. We're a good half a second off of Verstappen's pace.
It's a bit of a cloudy day for the race, but the atmosphere as ever is electric. Looking now at the Williams. They might not be in the top 3 spots, but things could change fast once the race gets underway. And looking at the second Williams car. A top 10 position today, but will they be able to capitalise on it? The race start is mere seconds away. This is what you've been waiting for. It's the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. It's lights out and away we go.
Understanding why our pace wasn't great in qualifying could come down to other upgrades for other teams. We did have one for the chassis, so I don't know what the case is. It's still awfully close outside of Verstappen having a good 4/10ths over everybody else. Most of the cars around us all on the mediums. There is one on the softs there. It's Pourchaire getting around Leclerc, who's actually on the softs, and challenging the Alpine as well. Chance to go P3 for Pourchaire, and it looks like he will succeed in doing so. That is a fantastic start for him. Can he get up there, though? He's still battling with Norris, but we will have the inside here coming up, and then you got to get past before the castle sector, though, and we're still not quite past. And with Red Bull as close as they are, it's going to be tough. Do we tuck in? We seem to have the overtake done and do finally get it done. So we'll settle into P3. That's awesome. Meanwhile, Doohan is, well, P6. He's gotten up one position, right? We were 5 and 7. So good start for us. Good start. Let's go ahead and settle in for him as well.
Increase, lift and coast.
Yeah, and that's the 2 Red Bulls on top, but maybe, just maybe, we can turn it into a P3, P4 kind of day, and that would probably be a pretty acceptable one, though that would allow Red Bull to close up on us a bit in the championship. But this has never been a very good track. I've had a lot of DNFs here. I've had a lot of non-points finishes. Well, we've only been in the points once or twice here, ever, in this series. So if we can get a P3, P4, I think we're looking at a really effective day. Magnussen, 2.5 seconds back in P9 means the top 8 are going to pull away, and that's already a good thing. Pourchaire up to P2 and challenging Verstappen, but Sainz has gotten around doing. 1.2. We're closing down, but we're not going to have DRS for the straight. And we don't have battery for the straight. And look how fast we are losing fuel. What, 2 laps of pushing and we lose 4/10? Meanwhile, Porsche, well, 10 laps, he's gained a little something. Sainz is 3.4 behind, so we got him out of range. Not quite on Leclerc. Really close to getting Leclerc out of range. Maybe should have pushed on that a little bit longer as we didn't have the detection zone just yet. But we have DRS. Leclerc has DRS. Now we're 9/10 ahead. Can we get him out of DRS range before the next detection zone? Half a lap of conserved fuel. And he goes from 3/10 behind to 1.05 and loses DRS and loses the position to Leclerc. And then Leclerc just doesn't have the pace. So Doohan now caught behind Leclerc, and Leclerc is starting to drop back. Now 1.7 behind, and Doohan can't seem to get right back past him. First round of pits has begun. That's those on the softs. Leclerc is amongst those, so that's going to add to our challenge of trying to get back up there. And of course, we just wasted a few percentage points to get up within that DRS range to have it thrown away immediately. We don't have the pace today, folks. We don't have the pace on this track for whatever reason. 2.8 behind. That fast.
And there's an overtake
from
Williams.
0.3 to 2.8 in 2 laps. Doohan has clean air to pit and presumably would come out ahead of Sainz. That doesn't seem right, but Leclerc was with us just a second ago and he comes out right there. So if he pit and came out there, then theoretically we would pit and come out right there too. So Doohan can probably pit right on time as he's got a gap. Porsche does not. So Porsche, we're going to want to pit a little bit after those other guys around him to get some clean air. Otherwise, he's going to lose 2 seconds in the pit stop itself, caught in his box. Happens every stinking time. Just about anyway. When you pit around other cars, even if they were behind you. So pitting 1 lap, 2 laps after these. Oh, 4 seconds for the stop for Porsche. Oh, and we have a crash on track. We have a crash on track. Local yellows. And we come out in P4. P4.
Yellow ahead, yellow ahead.
Russell.
Here's the replay.
Russell
We're
with the
just
crash.
watching the Red Bull.
Okay, okay. Lock up turn 1. No, spin.
A definite
Rear end.
collision there.
He'll
That's
be okay.
very
He'll continue,
unfortunate.
but that's probably going to be damage to the rear wing and to the gearbox.
And the
But enough
team
so
had
to
such high hopes.
continue, but will it impact his race pace? Good chance that it will. That's already Russell down to P15. P15 for Russell as he resumes racing, and you're looking at big intervals to guys behind him. But Porsche now running P4 on his own. And yeah, somehow Leclerc has come out. Is that a glitch? Did Leclerc even pit? Yeah, of course he pit. He just pit much earlier than everybody else. At least we're looking at Red Bull having problems now. Russell's in last place. Verstappen's only 3rd. They looked really quick in qualifying. Ferrari looking to have a decent day here, but not a perfect day. And Porsche is slowly closing up on those guys ahead of him, so he does have the right pace. Doohan, meanwhile, I've not been watching close enough here, but we are nearly full, and we get around Perez on
And
harvest.
There's an overtake from Williams.
And he's already on the back end of Sainz, and it's so much easier with the DRS when Sainz doesn't have it. That Doohan should probably be in P5 here fairly soon. We've got the fuel heading towards a positive delta. We have the battery filled up, and I think Doohan's going to naturally get into P5, as he does here on lap 35. He's now in P5, 9.5 seconds behind his teammates, so he's not looking like he's going to do much better than P5, but looks like P5 should be easy enough. Those signs with DRS is re-overtaking him, but I think Doohan ultimately is going to be the faster one with better pace and will probably break toe at some point. I mean, he's already out to 7/10. Safety car, that's going to pull the field up. And it's too late for either one to get a cheap pit stop and put on softs or fresh mediums. Who let Latifi back in the field? Oh, it's Haas.
And there we see the crash.
Forgot to turn. Didn't even see a lockup. He just went into the wall. Doohan does not have enough of a gap to these guys, though, so we're only pitting Porsche. I think the mediums are going to be better. Yeah, I mean, look how much is left. That's going to allow us to push. Okay, from P4. From P4, where do we come out at? As we're still catching the safety car, so we might not. We could lose more than just a few spots. We'll see. Big risk here, folks. Big risk. Field very much had not bunched up. But it is P7. And do we come out ahead of those guys? Just barely? Yes, we do. Alright, Porsche is going to have the easier chance. We can also see Doohan ahead of us there in P4 as we approach the start-finish line, ready to begin. Of course, you cannot overtake until the start-finish line, so we've got to time things right. But I think Porsche already well in position to get to the inside, but he gets a bad start here and ends up not getting up the inside. We should have had Perez before turn 1 on that restart. But meanwhile, Doohan gets up to P3, already around Leclerc. By the way, it's Norris right now in the race lead. Now we get up the inside, that advantage of the medium already showing, and Porsche regains 1 position. Doohan, of course, has already gained 2 positions, 1 from his teammate and 1 from Leclerc, so he's looking good. All right, we have some ground to make up as we are 1.7 behind Leclerc. Leclerc is 1.2 behind Doohan, though. Verstappen gets around Norris. Doohan is right there. Gets around Norris as well into P2. Well positioned to potentially claim the race win, but Porsche is also well positioned. Back of him already. And he's outside of DRS, so couldn't be an easier overtake setup for us than what we have right now. And we've already got the inside overtake done well before the start-finish line, and closing right up on Norris. And already within range. And let's go back to harvest. Are you kidding me? Are we gonna go now? We're gonna go now. Doohan has gone around Verstappen as well, so it's already a 1-3. Doohan blocks him. But Porsche are not able to overtake, though he actually did recover a fair bit of battery and then has the overtake on and then pulls out of it. And then there goes Verstappen and Porsche past Doohan. Side by side, actually, the teammates for now. Porsche has enough pace on those mediums to keep ahead with the DRS. The top 3 really pulling away. We're now over 1.5 seconds ahead of the chasing pack. Though a little DRS bonus there helped them out, as Doohan up beside Verstappen. Verstappen 1.6 behind. Porsche has driven away. Again, this time we have the inside for the castle sufficiently beside, and
Check the DRS.
get the job done, but run out of battery at the worst time. We need to harvest here real fast. Lap 45, by the way. And Bottas has been allowed to close back up as these two battle. So now we're going to have to... even though he was green. And Doohan has not been able to overtake Verstappen. Why not? Let's go, buddy. Full attack. He's already up beside him and has DRS. Should get the overtake done right now. And does. The only other DRS zone will be towards the finish there. And yes, come on, Bottas. Bottas goes through. Bottas goes through, and Verstappen is down to P4. A 1-2 finish, and Verstappen struggling to hang on to a podium position means even more points for us. Okay, the fuel is fine. Porsche, 8.7 ahead, just a few turns to go, but we will watch Doohan's battle. But Bottas is clearly ahead of Verstappen now. We're going to go balanced for a second. As we don't have much here, we want to make sure we use it on the straight. Same there. Go neutral. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. He deployed that awfully quick. Bottas now at 0.6. But the overtake usually takes a bit. Now push. Final straight. Battery's already gone. Can we hold off Bottas? He's coming on hard and fast, just 3/10 behind us, 2/10 behind us. He's going to get DRS here. He's going to get DRS. He's closing us down. He's closing us down. But we get across the finish line, still ahead. That got close, but we do get the 1-2, and Bottas beats Verstappen. I have no idea who's got the fastest lap here. No idea whatsoever. But that is an optimal race right there, because Russell's P19, so Red Bull only get, what, 12 points? And we get possibly maximum. I think Porsche might have had the fastest lap, or Doohan, for that matter. I think one of them might have it, so... Whew, yeah. Bottas gets the fastest lap, but that's probably the final lap of the race, actually. Maybe not, but yeah, half a second faster than Porsche. Porsche, you would think he would have had it there at the end, but of course we were on the mediums, not on the softs. But the mediums were absolutely the right call. He easily got through the field, and the tires didn't drop off at the end as the softs would have done. Bottas had a two-stopper, so he stopped as well. That's right, he stopped as well. He was coming through on the softs. And it worked out, but that second stop was big. Doohan, his problem, and the only reason why we didn't, was he was further back, that he would have lost a lot more spots. He would have had a lot of overtaking to do. We made the right call by not pitting Doohan. We made the perfect call by pitting Porsche, who won comfortably. Doohan might have been able to make his way through the field, but I don't trust him to push like I trust Porsche to push. Even though Porsche was the one who crashed out of the last race, not Doohan. Still, we've seen a trend here, but that's a lot of points, folks. A lot of points. Porsche first in the championship, Doohan now second, and Russell, who scores no points today after finishing P19, is now 10 behind Doohan. Quite a bit, 26 behind Porsche. Verstappen is fourth. 30 points gained on Red Bull today, sitting on 232 to their 188. McLaren and Ferrari are miles behind after 8 rounds. And we're starting to get far enough into that championship where we're past the 1/3 point, not that far away from halfway now, and things are looking good. But as I said after the last race, eventually our lack of current car upgrades will catch up to us, and I expect we're going to face a tougher challenge in the later portion of the season. I mean, we've already committed 4 parts to research for next year. We only have 2 more that we're going to do anything with this season, so we really only have probably 2 more upgrades on the car for the entire year. others will be coming with new parts. I don't think everybody's going to be committed to next year's car the way that we are. That's going to do it for this episode, though. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there, and bye for now.